Coming to you live from the sands of Tatooine. It's the Movie Change Up Podcast Disney Plus Weekly Review, where each week, me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and my co-host, Tristan #Cobb Lives, kind of break down this week in Disney Plus, give a little rundown of maybe what's dropped, any news that's released. So yeah, if you have Disney Plus, now with Boba Fett winding down and Moon Knight being a few months away at this point, or a little over a month away, you need something to watch. That's what we're here for. We're here to break it down. Tristan, kind of a slow week for Disney Plus releases. However, it was a very strong week for Disney Plus news. So how you feeling about that Disney Plus subscription?
Yeah, I mean, we had a lot going on this week, Joe. A lot to talk about, so it's going to be a fun one to get into. And there were some solid drops this week. I mean, you scroll through the new on Disney Plus section, there's a lot of stuff on there. Maybe not stuff that we would talk about, but I mean, Summer of Soul recently got added on there. That's an Oscar nominee, potentially an Oscar winner. So that one just got added to Disney Plus. That's a great one to watch. So yeah, I think there's a great collection of stuff here. The Wonder Years reboot got added on there, so there's some backlog stuff from ABC, and yeah, stuff we're also going to talk about like the Hawkeye behind the scenes. So yeah, a big blast of a week, and then on top of that, yeah, like you said, tons of news, and I'm glad you opened us up from Tatooine because you get one last week to do that with Boba Fett ending here. But if you look at the news, you might be able to do that again pretty soon. So it'll be fun to talk about it all and get into the news and what's coming up. Because, like you said, Boba Fett is ending, but there's still plenty ahead and plenty to watch on the platform here.
For sure, for sure. So let's kick it off with a big release this week, and that was Wednesday's episode of Book of Boba Fett, the season 1 finale, according to Ming Na Wen. Fingers crossed on a season 2. So who knows? I'm kind of thinking we're not going to get one, and I don't think it's just because of the reaction to the show. I think that was kind of always the plan, was a one season thing to kind of give a little update on what Boba Fett is in regards to this whole Mandoverse continuity. And to give my general thoughts, basically, plot of the episode, it's the big battle, the battle we've been building towards, of Boba Fett and his crew, along with Mando, Fennec Shand, Black Chrysanthemum, the mods, the Gamorrean guards, all versus the Pikes, and Cad Bane. And, that was pretty much the big bulk of the episode, was that battle. It was a fun episode, solid, okay, adequate episode. And that's kind of my main thoughts. The whole season I've been kind of on most of the season, but I'm like, okay, let's see how it ends. Let's see how it all ties together. And it honestly just wasn't enough for me as far as like storyline wise. Like, I like the action, I like the battle scene itself, but as far as the story, I'm just kind of left with the big question of why. Why did we need to see a lot of the stuff we saw? The story for me just didn't come together as much as I would like it to. It was just aggressively mediocre. I wouldn't say it's bad, it was just aggressively mediocre. Mandalorian is one of those shows where even if you're not a Star Wars fan, if I knew someone that had Disney Plus and I knew they were like big into westerns, big into that type of thing, I'd be like, hey, check out Mandalorian. But outside of hardcore Star Wars fans, I don't really see myself telling someone to watch Book of Boba Fett. But Tristan, I'll go to you. What was your kind of thoughts on this finale?
Yeah, I want to mention some stuff that I liked here because I saw a lot of people, or a certain subgroup of people online, very angry about some of the action in this episode and being mad about, oh, this guy spirals around. Why is it so campy? Why is it so goofy? And like, to me, I wanted more of that. That was the thing that I wish we got for this entire season. Like, when I look at Robert Rodriguez doing Star Wars, I think of like, when I Spy Kids and Machete, where he's very stylized and very kind of over the top and is able to do these very kind of fun things with the genre that he's working in. And was really excited to see that here. I imagine a Robert Rodriguez aliens and the practical costumes you could do when I think of all the craziness he had in Spy Kids with the guy with all the hands coming off him and that kind of stuff. And I think, oh, imagine what this guy can do in Star Wars. And then it turns out that he just gets this kind of neutered, half-baked thing that doesn't really have a lot of narrative direction. And then halfway through gets subverted with this totally different thing from a different show, and I think it hurts that this show is not great around it, and then right in the middle of it, it has these totally off kilter episodes. But that's last week, and for this week, I thought the action was fine. You know, it was solid action. I think you could literally see Robert Rodriguez smashing his action figures together as he was doing this last sequence. It was like, okay, what if I had Boba Fett, and then my friend came over, but he had a Boba Fett guy that was like, oh, silver. And we had two Boba Fetts, and then they kind of like fought against like our Power Ranger robot guy. Like, what if that was the story? And then I had a Yoda who was like a baby. And then you had Chewbacca, but it was like an off-brand Chewbacca, so it was all black. You know, it was like the dollar store Chewbacca, and then they all fought together. Like this
And
to me
then
felt like kids hanging out playing with toys.
And then my cousin had a Rancor come over, but he didn't really have any other toys, so I just put my Boba Fett on top of his Rancor, and he rode the Rancor around, and yeah. Like, that's exactly how I described the episode, and that's a lot of what I want this whole Mandoverse to be, because that's kind of how Jon Favreau described it at the beginning, and, like, going into this, I wanted a show brought to me by the director of Machete and Spy Kids, and instead I got a show brought to me by the writer of Cowboys and Aliens.
That's how I felt, and I think of Robert Rodriguez, and I feel bad because I think he's gonna take a lot of the blunt of the damage here, like PR wise, not PR wise, but I think
You know?
the fan community is gonna look at this show and be like, oh, Robert Rodriguez made that bad Boba Fett show, and not think of the fact that Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni are kind of the spearheads of this, you know, and I would argue almost that Dave Filoni came in and kind of wrecked the show that was going the way it was going, and it feels to me like Filoni and Favreau had this random idea for a Boba Fett show, and they also had this idea for this Mandalorian story they wanted to get to, and they were like, oh, let's just kind of like do them all and not really commit to any of it. And we wanted Robert Rodriguez to come in and do a show, but we don't want it to be a Robert Rodriguez show because it's a Disney Plus show first and foremost. So it has to be shot in the volume and look really boring. And yeah, I just feel you said you would recommend the show to hardcore Star Wars fans, and I would recommend the show to no one. Like to me,
I
this
just
is
mean
for
more as,
sure
like, you know,
not a show that I recommend anyone, even a hardcore Star Wars fan. I would say you get nothing from this. Like, you learn nothing of Boba Fett's character. I know nothing about Boba Fett that I didn't understand from his Mandalorian appearance. Like, I guess I understand the details, but there was no big definitive reveal. And when I think and I went through before this and I thought of like my favorite Boba Fett moments in all of Star Wars, and the fact that I give a top five, maybe even a top 10 Boba Fett moments, and none of them are from a show all about Boba Fett, I think that's pretty bad. You know, they couldn't deliver even a single one or two like huge iconic cool Boba Fett moments. Like I guess him coming in the Rancor here, that was one where I thought, oh, that was pretty cool, you know, and I thought that was the first time this entire series where I felt like they were making Boba Fett do something cool.
you know.
And yeah, it felt like to me a big disappointment. And I hope Robert Rodriguez isn't the one that takes the blame, because to me it feels like a corporate decision and like a corporate neutering of a director who has a lot of style that he never got to use in the show.
Yeah. Part of me feels like the finale, like, because we can talk about the series as a whole, but part of me, the finale just felt like the season finale to a show I didn't watch. Like, so many things just felt unearned and came out of nowhere. Like, as immediately after the finale was over, I was like, okay, Boba Fett claims he's a crime boss, but he basically seemed to be against all crime. He was like, no killing, no more spice trading, just no crime really, but I'm a crime boss. And I feel like the show should have been, you know, I've talked about this before, do it in pretty much chronological order. He spends the first episode with the Tusken. He escapes the Sarlacc pit, spends the first episode with the Tuskens, and do more to really make it feel like he's been living with the Tuskens for 5 years. He goes away to talk with the Pikes of being like, hey, stop attacking us. Comes back, all the Tuskens are dead. Season 2 is basically that same episode we had with Fennec Shand and him getting his ship back, which ultimately didn't matter. I feel like maybe you even get rid of the whole thing with the Rancor, and the scene of him coming back with the Rancor is him coming back with his ship, because that's what I thought he was getting in the finale when he's like, oh, I'm going to get back up. He should have just went and grabbed his ship, because he could have done the same thing. So remove everything. As cool as the Rancor thing was, I think just removing it and replacing it with his ship and doing something cool with his ship that is iconic would have been just as great. And then episode 3 ends, you know, he's doing stuff, building his thing, and basically he's like, after the death of Jabba the Hutt, Tatooine, the area of Mos Espa, Mos Eisley, and Mos Pelgo have been complete lawlessness. So episode 3 is him essentially saying, like, I'm going to be the new self-appointed sheriff of this area of Tatooine, which allows him to kind of go toe-to-toe and head-to-head with the mayor, because the mayor's like, I'm the mayor here, I determine who's sheriff, like, I'm the law here, and Boba Fett's like, well, you're doing a pretty crappy job of it, and I need to bring law and order to this area because look at all the destruction that's happening. And instead of just like recruiting random people, he can be like deputizing people essentially with like Fennec Shand, Black Chrysanthemum, trying to like say like, hey, this is an area that needs help and try to convince them to help them. Season 3 kind of tag at the end of the episode is the Pikes, and we see it was Cad Bane who killed the Pikes hired Cad Bane to kill the Tuskens because they were in the way. And all of the back to tank flashbacks, instead of being with the Tuskens, because we've already seen the Tuskens, we flash back to Boba Fett's teenage years, and we see he was essentially raised and trained by Cad Bane, and they kind of have a Star-Lord and Yondu relationship where it was very like mean and aggressive, and he wasn't exactly fatherly and nice, but he still trained Boba Fett in how to be a bounty hunter, and they still have a kind of complicated relationship. You can bring back Daniel Logan to be in the suit and voice Boba Fett, teenage Boba Fett. So we have a few episodes of flashback. I think if you wanted to, you can have Boba Fett go with the Mandalorian, so he can be with the Mandalorian and they can be working together in that first kind of Mandalorian standalone episode. And then if you want to have an interlude Boba Fett-less episode, you can still kind of do that second episode, but now you're only one episode without Boba Fett instead of two. And then now that we've seen Boba Fett and Cad Bane's relationship, the final fight scene where it's their whole conversation about like training him and working together and now being antagonists against each other means more because it's based on stuff we've seen and not unreleased Clone Wars episodes that we've only seen like on fully produced, basically previs art of, and like only like 1% of fans ever watch those, and which is another big problem I have with the episode. And I feel like that final fight where he, spoiler alert, kills Cad Bane would mean a lot more when we've seen a big, or a decent sized portion of their relationship. And I also think it would tie kind of directly into Star Wars of Luke Skywalker does the right thing by saving his father, but now you have a different character who has a different viewpoint, who's in a different situation where his right thing is essentially like killing his symbolic father in Cad Bane.
Yeah, I like yours better than what we got because yours, like you mentioned just now, at least ties into what's actually on the screen happening, and to me, what really sinks this show, and you've seen this problem also in some of the Marvel stuff where it very much revolves around the cameos and it very much revolves around like the plot and narrative of other things. When I look at this show, some of the biggest, especially just in this finale, to focus on the finale, like the return of Grogu is one of the biggest moments here, and like that's not even rooted in the show at all. Like that's something that's based on the fact that you've watched a different show and already know who this character is and already care about him and Mando reuniting, and like that's a moment built in a different show than that's not this. And like Cad Bane, that's a moment built in a different show that's not this. And I think it's a mixed bag because you're trying to appeal to the hardcore fans like me and you who have watched the previous Clone Wars episodes that were never released and are like partially canon, and it's like, oh, we want to please those fans, but at the same time you make the show very lightweight and very basic to try and appeal to like the normal viewer. And I think Disney's trying to appeal to way too many people, and like they made a kids show and a Boba Fett show and a Robert Rodriguez show and a Star Wars show and a Mandalorian spinoff and tried to make it all in one, and none of it all really worked well together. And I think that's a big problem these shows are going to have if they're trying to appeal to every single person possible. Like they have to be able to make a more niche show, and this show should have been the niche show. This show should have been like, okay, we're going to pick one demographic and stick to it. Whether it was we're going to make it all a zany kid show, or we're going to make it all Robert Rodriguez balls to the wall show, or we're gonna make it like the actual mob show. They needed to pick one and do just the one.
Yeah.
And it feels like they tried to do everything all at once, and none of it was able to work because of it.
But like my thing is, and like it's still agreeing with what you're saying, is it's not like we saw Boba Fett and Cad Bane's relationship in the Clone Wars, and they're like, oh, we're just gonna skip over it because hardcore fans saw it. Like nobody saw it, so like why not show it? Is my question. Like show it, the hardcore fans will enjoy watching it, and then the fans who didn't watch Clone Wars, who maybe got into Star Wars, through The Mandalorian, will still get everything out of it and learn about their relationship. But like if you don't know about that unreleased arc, I think you're just kind of left confused about Cad Bane's appearance, and you're almost questioning like, wait, was he in the movies that I missed, or was he part of that kind of lineup of bounty hunters that I missed? And I feel like you're just kind of left ultimately confused at the end. And then another thing I wanted to talk about was Boba Fett kind of had this like no murdering, no killing thing, and then you had the scene at the end with Fennec Shand going and killing the mayor and killing that kind of group of Pikes, and I'm like, what was that scene even about? Was that kind of showing that Fennec Shand is betraying Boba Fett? Was she working for Boba Fett, and did he want her to do that? Like, what even is going on at this moment?
Yeah, I think a lot of this show felt tonally confused, and it's like in one scene, Boba Fett saying, "I'm never gonna kill," and the next scene, he's like killing dozens of people, like blowing them up from his ship, and it's like, and then in the next scene, it's like, yeah, like you said, Fennec Shand's going out and assassinating all these people, and it's like the scene is played lightly too, like the music is kind of light, and it's kind of played like, oh look, they finally got their due or whatever, and it's like, is that the message of the show? Like,
Yeah,
I don't
because
understand what the show is trying to say or
that was
what we learned here.
my thing. If she was on a mission from Boba Fett, like doing that, because he ordered her to, why didn't they just do that from day one? And it would have made their lives a whole lot easier. And like one thing too is we spent an entire episode, I think it was like episode 3 or 4, of him getting his ship, and then it never mattered because they used that ship to go to the Sarlacc pit. They looked down and are like, nope, my armor's not here. And then we like basically he took out the gang, and then we find out the gang isn't even, they were framed. They weren't even the ones that killed the Tuskens. And so it's like, why did we spend an entire episode to get a ship when it didn't even matter? We didn't need the ship. That's why as much as I enjoy the Rancor, it was cool. We should have just got rid of it and replaced the scene with the rank. In the like, I understand the whole King Kong reference and all that, but it should have just been his ship that he got and he used to defeat the Pikes and Cad Bane at the end.
Yeah, I don't have much more to say on this. I feel like I said a lot there is to be said. At least from my perspective, I think I'm glad the show is over with. To be honest with you, and you're like, oh, Ming-Na went, fingers crossed for season 2, and I'm like, fingers crossed that we never see more of this. Like, I'm all for like maybe coming back to Boba Fett in a few years, maybe even having Robert Rodriguez come back to Star Wars and have another shot to actually doing something in his like more in his wheelhouse and more kind of like freeing than this was. But for now, I definitely want to move on to something. Get us out of Tatooine. Get us out of Boba Fett, Joe.
Yeah. The one thing I will say is I'm perfectly okay and looking forward to a season 2 of Book of Boba Fett if they learned their lessons. If they were like, okay, here's our problems with season 1, let's correct them, but also don't overcorrect. But we shall see. I'm thinking if the cast and crew don't even know if we're getting a Book of Boba Fett season 2, we're probably not, because Andor season 1 hasn't even released yet. It's months away from release, and Stellan Skarsgård, who was in season 1, has said, oh yeah, we're filming season 2 in the fall. So pretty sure if we were getting a season 2 of Book of Boba Fett anytime soon, Ming-Na Wen would know about it. So let's continue on with Star Wars, but out of Book of Boba Fett and into Obi-Wan Kenobi. We got a poster and a release date, and that's a May 25th release date, coinciding with the 45th anniversary of the release of Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, which was just known as Star Wars at the time in 1977. So Tristan, any big, it's not really a big shocker. I think it was reported a few weeks ago, or kind of leaked a few weeks ago, that it would have a May release date, and most fans were like, okay, it's either going to be May 4th to coincide with May the 4th. It's going to be May 11th, the week after Moon Knight releases, or the Moon Knight finale, because the Moon Knight finale, I guess, is going to be May 4th, or May 25th for the anniversary of A New Hope. So it's one of the 3 release dates that people following the leaks guess. So what are your kind of thoughts on this?
Yeah, it was a fun couple of months or so here, being like, okay, when's it gonna come out? May this, May that, May then, and we're finally getting slowly but surely a shape of the schedule here for these shows, and yeah, it's gonna be a good one to watch, and yeah, closing out on the anniversary of New Hope feels like a nice little moment to bring Obi-Wan back, and more time at Tatooine, more time in the endless volume of pictures of sand. I hope that they can do something more with this. And I mentioned in the previous conversation that I felt like that show had a bit of a lack of direction, and this one, Deborah Chow, I believe, is directing every episode.
Yep.
So I think this could feel much more like a unified piece and much more like a singular story. Whether or not like they have these offshoot things, maybe there's episodes or flashback to the Clone Wars or something like that. But I think this could be a much more contained story. And yeah, I love that poster because it kind of just teases Obi-Wan, and we get a look at him being back, a look at the costume, but not quite a full look. And I imagine it's going to be similar like to that in the marketing. Maybe we might not even get a full shot of Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi once again until we watch the episode day one. That could be a way to market it. You get these kind of like half shots from behind. You get far away shots, and then once you watch the premiere, it's like poster day one. Obi-Wan Kenobi's back. Everyone's talking about it.
Yeah. Well, if the rumors and leaks are to be believed, I don't know how much time we'll actually be spending on Tatooine in this show. Looks like Obi-Wan may be going on a little bit of an adventure. And I kind of, when it comes to these Star Wars shows, I kind of have the same belief that's tossed around in comics, is you have to assume that every comic is somebody's first comic. And so you kind of to a degree have to, when you're writing Obi-Wan Kenobi, write it as if this is somebody's entry point into Star Wars. So I think you almost need a Clone Wars flashback of Obi-Wan and Anakin talking and hanging out and, having a conversation and being friends. So when Obi-Wan, based on just everything that they've said, Anakin or Hayden Christensen is in the show as both Anakin and Vader. I think you kind of need to see Obi-Wan and Anakin as friends to know why is Obi-Wan trying to redeem and save him now that he's turned evil. So I think if we only ever see Obi-Wan, if you're new to this series or new to Star Wars and this is your entry point into the Star Wars, and you never see Hayden Christensen as Anakin, you only ever see him as Vader in this show, you're going to be kind of left wondering, like, why is he trying to save this guy? Like, what's so special about this guy? But if you see their brotherly relationship, I think it'll kind of inform you as why, like, okay, I understand why this character is trying to redeem and save this character.
Yeah, I hope that's what they do with it, because it would be nice if people are like, oh, I like Star Wars, but I hated those prequels. It would be nice to be able to say, oh, you can watch this one miniseries, rather than saying, okay, you got to watch 7 seasons of this kids animated show that's like 25 episodes a season. Then you got to watch this other animated show. It's a sequel to that animated show that's almost just as long. And it's like, people are like, maybe not. And I think giving us a singular miniseries you can send people to and be like, okay, here's the arc of Obi-Wan and Anakin kind of condensed down into a consumable product. I think that's a much more consumable thing to give people. So I hope that's what they do for it.
Yeah. Do you think we see a younger live action Ahsoka, maybe played by someone like, I know Laura Harrier has been fan cast as Clone Wars era Ahsoka before. Maybe they even say, you know what, for this one episode we'll bring back Ashley Eckstein as Ahsoka. So what are your thoughts on that?
I was thinking the latter. I was thinking they might be similar. I don't know if they're going to literally have it back physically, but I could see them doing like a Cad Bane, Luke Skywalker kind of CGI thing where it's essentially out of the era Ahsoka, but it's voiced and moved by Ashley Eckstein, so she's able to be kind of like a spitting image of Ahsoka.
Yeah.
Because I think that's a one chance when you see the 3 together, it would be fun for that one scene to have be Ashley Eckstein. Because I know that they're trying to go forward with the new actress, but I would love to just have one scene to kind of send off Ashley Eckstein.
Yeah, and you can't really cast Rosario Dawson, who's like 40 plus years old, as 15-year-old Ahsoka Tano. It just really wouldn't work. But yeah, that's all I really have to say about this. I'm excited for it, looking forward to it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it too. And it'll be fun to talk about because I know we both have a lot of nostalgia and love for all the eras of this character, so it'll be a fun tribute to the character.
One final thing I have is so they released this poster on the same day as the finale of Book of Boba Fett, and there's a big thing this Sunday where a lot of trailers drop. And my question is, and with a lot of film and TV, a poster release kind of means a trailer release isn't too far behind. You think there's any chance we get a trailer release this Sunday around 8 to 10 p.m.?
I think there's a big chance. I think maybe not a full trailer, but I could see there being a teaser, a little tiny
Yeah.
reveal, and
Yeah.
like I said earlier, a tease of Ewan McGregor in the costume, something like that that says, "Oh look, he's back, he's coming," and it could be a nice way to get us past the Boba Fett conversation and onto the next one because I think Lucasfilm has to know that people were not happy overall with the
Yeah.
show and give us something like this that can make the conversation more exciting and more positive, and all of a sudden it's like that will never happen.
Yep. All right. Next topic, we're gonna go from the world of Luke Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi to the world of Benjamin Franklin Gates, and that is the world of National Treasure. We got an update on the National Treasure Disney Plus series, and I kind of feel like somewhat vindicated in our prediction from a few weeks ago when we had a kind of National Treasure focused episode when I said, "Hey, look, episode 1 we had Sean Bean, who was kind of a big 90s action star with um, James Bond and a few other movies, and then National Treasure 2 we had Ed Harris as the villain, and he was kind of a somewhat of a 90s action star with The Rock and a few other movies. And now it's been announced Catherine Zeta-Jones is joining the cast of uh, the National Treasure Disney Plus series, and we were speculating. I said, "Hey, look, the movies had a male lead, and each one had a '90s action star, male villain. The series has a female lead. Are we getting a '90s female villain?" And it looks like that's. I mean, they didn't say whether she's the villain or not, but if she is, then I feel, even though I wasn't speculating or I didn't guess Catherine Zeta-Jones, I feel that my prediction was right, and I'm gonna lock in that my prediction was right if she is the villain, even though I didn't guess her specifically.
Yeah, I think it's very proven by this news that Disney listens to our podcast and that they cast based on our decisions and they cast very quickly. In a week they were able to be like, you know what, '90s villain, that's a really good idea, and then they went back and they got themselves Catherine Zeta-Jones, and I think it's a good addition. I imagine she's a villain, if not a villain, maybe she'll be like a leader of the good guys, something like that.
Yeah, I feel like
But
she's either gonna be. My guess is she's either the villain or the main character's mom, if kind of filling that like John Voight, Helen Mirren role.
yeah, it's a good idea too. I hope she's a villain. I think it'd be really fun to see that be the case. I think it's always fun when they do stuff like this, like somewhat stunt cast on the villain, like to make it like a known name and someone you go and watch it for. And you mentioned Moon Knight, and I think if Ethan Hawke is the villain of Moon Knight, that's kind of like the stunt casting moment. And I think Catherine Zeta-Jones is a villain is kind of a stunt casting thing. I I would love it if we got a Nicolas Cage scene between the two of them. I'm sure not, but wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, I think if he's not in season 1 and it gets a season 2, I think Nicolas Cage shows up in season 2
Especially if it's not a dumpster fire, like if it's decently reviewed. I think maybe he does show up for season 2.
for sure. All right, not a whole lot to say there. There wasn't much, information to speculate on. So that brings us to our next topic, which we probably won't stay on very long, and that is West Side Story gets a Disney Plus release date. It is coming to Disney Plus, and now I forget it's March 2nd or March 3rd, one of those days.
One of them.
Coming up quick. I have not seen it yet, but I'm gonna see it before the Oscars, so I'll probably see it that weekend it releases. Tristan, have you watched it?
Yeah, I've seen West Side Story. I watched it in theaters when it came out. Me and a handful of people saw it in theaters.
Yeah.
One or two of us. Uh, but yeah, it's a great watch. I think it's a good fit for a streaming platform, and I can't wait to see it do numbers in there. I think it did not do well in theaters, of course, but I think once people are able to see it and see it on a platform that a lot of people, that families share, and I think it's going to be one that is kind of a big hit for Disney. And yeah, you mentioned that's nominated for an Oscar, so I wanted to quickly run through. There's I think 5 other movies on here that are nominated for the Oscars this year. So if you want to watch them. They're right here. And Kanto and Raya and the Last Dragon were both nominated for Best Animated Feature, so you can check that one out. Uh, Shang-Chi, I believe, was nominated for his visual effects. So you can check that one out if you want to see the effects. It's also in the IMAX ratio, so you can see that uh, on there for extra cool effects. You have Cruella, which is nominated, I believe, for makeup and hairstyling and also for costumes. So if you like your makeup and hairstyling, you want to see Cruella. Cruella is definitely a fun watch. And me and Joe both like Cruella.
Yeah.
And then lastly, Summer of Soul, nominated and high chance of being the victor for the documentary of the year. It's about a big kind of, essentially they call it the Black Woodstock, where it's a bunch of black artists who came together and had this huge outdoor concert, and it sort of chronicles this concert and what led up to it and the actual concert itself. So you get a lot of great concert footage, and you get kind of like the aftermath of what it inspired and what kind of the looking back on it, what people think of it now. So a great chronicle of music and coming together. So you have a really wide collection there of Disney's Oscar nominated stuff, and I think West Side Story will make a good addition to that. So yeah, if you like the original, it's a basically the same plot. They do change things around, move songs here and there, change some plot beats, of course, to make it more modern, and I think it works really really well. I think it's a great modernization of that movie. So if you haven't seen it, it's definitely worth watching on Disney Plus.
All right. I'll definitely check it out. Then our next topic, Disney Plus has bought the rights to Goosebumps and will be releasing a Goosebumps series. We've had an R.L. Stein series already on Disney Plus, so curious to see how this Goosebumps series is going to go. Tristan, you think we're going to get some remakes of some classic books that our age group grew up with?
Yeah, I can't wait to see the Slappy. I can't wait to see the Haunted Mask. Bring back Hayden Christensen. Give him an episode.
Mm.
We gotta have that. Uh, yeah, and you mentioned there's already been an R.L. Stein show on Just Beyond on Disney Plus, and I think that was one of the better Disney Plus originals, and it was kind of a surprise where I thought, oh, this could be some kind of like forgettable kid show, and it turned out to be pretty good, and went more into the genre than I thought it would. So it makes me excited for Goosebumps, and that it's going to go more genre than I maybe would expect it to, and it could easily be one of those dumb kid shows, but I think the Goosebumps name is too much of an established IP and one that has enough nostalgia to it that I think they are going to want to go for that Stranger Things kind of vibe, where it's going to be kind of a family show, one that everyone kind of comes together and watches. And I would love to see them make it into a Stranger Things kind of story where it's like these self-contained seasons. Maybe I don't know. I'm really looking forward to what they do with it because there's so many possibilities. Like I said, they can just directly adapt classic books like they did before. They could do a Stranger Things kind of thing where it's recurring characters. It's like an actual drama within the world of Goosebumps, kind of like the movies sort of did. Or you could just kind of do anthology episodes and not really have any continuity at all. So yeah, I can't wait to watch it. I have a lot of nostalgia for Goosebumps. It's kind of a foundational horror series, I think, and I think R.L. Stein doesn't get enough credit sometimes for being such a foundational kind of influence of horror for our generation and bringing so many people of our generation into horror literature in the same way that kind of Stephen King does
Yeah.
for more adult readers. But yeah, I can't wait to watch this. I hope Disney does enough with it because it could be a really, really fun show to watch if they do.
Yeah. R.L. Stein's basically been carrying the Scholastic Book Fair on his back for like 20 years.
Yeah, no, I have vivid memories of walking into the book fair and seeing all the Goosebumps covers. It was a good times. It brings me back.
Yep. All right. So our next topic, one we've gone from haven't really talked Marvel, which is a big pillar of the kind of Disney Plus brand, and that is Anthony Ramos, who people might remember from In the Heights, is cast in the Ironheart series. A lot of speculation on who he might be, but we don't know for certain. Always good to add talent to your cast and to your show. Any initial thoughts on that? Any idea who he might be playing?
No, no idea, no speculation. I don't know anything about the Ironheart characters, but I think Anthony Ramos is a great addition. Like you said, more talent is always good, and he's coming in hot off of In the Heights. So In the Heights didn't necessarily get all the awards love that people were kind of hoping it would. So it's nice to see that his career didn't flop afterwards. We've got one person from the Heights over on Warner Brothers. Leslie Grace is now Batgirl in Warner Brothers. Now we've got Anthony Ramos here as who knows who on Marvel. Yeah, any ideas of who he could be playing?
Some people are speculating he might be playing Ezekiel Stane, who is the son of Obadiah Stane, and kind of is the second iteration of the Ironmonger character. I'm not 100% sure about that just because of the ethnicity of the actors. I'm not 100% sure on Anthony Ramos's, backstory, and I don't know how the reaction of everybody would feel of like ethnically Latin actor playing the son of a white actor, but I don't know. Maybe he is of mixed ancestry, and then ultimately it wouldn't really matter. But that's what I'm seeing a lot of speculation on of who he could be.
Yeah, I like that. I think it'd be a nice addition to the cast. And we just mentioned you bring in a somewhat known name to play a villain. That's pretty cool. And I think Anthony Ramos could be a nice you know, like a henchman villain, something like that. And I think that name you dropped is a good name, and I can't wait to watch it. I think it's one of those shows that I forget is out there because Marvel has so many shows in development that are just kind of like in the background doing their thing, getting made. So I'm looking forward to Ironheart.
Yep. All right, and our next one, we go from the realm of Marvel to, I guess, a reality docu series, and that is Brie Larson's Growing Up, which is like I said, a docu series, but it's going to focus on kind of coming of age stories, true coming of age stories, hosted by Brie Larson. So, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, we still got some Marvel news. You know, half Marvel. We got
Yeah.
Brie Larson's show. I like Brie Larson. I think she's a fun personality, and she's cool on social media. So I think she'd be a good fit for one of these kind of shows. She has that kind of bubbly, fun side that she can bring out. And yeah, growing up, it's kind of this coming of age, young adult thing where she's 10 episodes of chronicling these young people as they're at a point where they're having to grow up. And I think Brie Larson will have a good personality for that show. I think she has that kind of comforting best friend vibe that she can bring out and be kind of the cool, fun aunt to these young kids. So I think it'll be a fun one to watch. I like Brie Larson more than I think a lot of people do. So I might be in the minority of being positive on this, but it'll be one that I watch and have a good time with and never think about afterwards, probably.
Yeah, I'm probably in the same thing. It'll be similar to Gal Gadot's series, I imagine. Another series we're getting is Jeremy Renner's Renovations, where he's renovating old cars. I love the show already purely for the pun. Don't really care about renovating cars at all. But I enjoy Jeremy Renner. It's he gives like big time dad energy. So we'll see how that goes. I could see it being a show I watch one episode and I'm like, I get it. You know. Any thoughts on Jeremy Renner renovating cars?
Yeah, I mean the title alone makes me really want to like this show. I'll be honest with you. Like you hear renovations and you're like, oh, that's perfect. And of course, Jeremy Renner seems like the perfect personality to be renovating old cars. That seems like something he'd be into. I hope he does the theme song himself. That would be really
Oh, that
fun.
would be great. That would be his song that played. I think during like a lot of college football games a few years ago, like during commercials. I low key kind of like. I don't remember the name of it, but it'll come on the radio like every like couple months, and I'll be like, "Oh, that song's actually good."
Yeah, not I'm not a car person. I'm not sure how much I'm gonna get out of the show, but I'm more into the Brie Larson show than I am into this one. At least if the Brie Larson is like actually involved in it, and it's not like Gal Gadot where she comes in from like a Skype call every like 20 minutes and says, "Good job, kids." I think but Jeremy Renner, it's nice to see him keep working with Marvel or keep working with Disney because I don't know how much more he's doing with Marvel here. So keep getting the paychecks, Jeremy. Come in and do this renovations. I love these shows because it's like these guys get to a point where they can just like live their dream life and get paid for it. They're like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm gonna renovate old cars and get paid millions of dollars. It's like when Norman Reedus had the show where he's like, yeah, I'm gonna ride bikes and they're gonna pay me millions for this.
I'm just gonna ride my motorcycle across America and have the like most watched show on AMC after The Walking Dead, which I'm also on.
What a life.
Mm. All right, next, I think this is an original series. Maybe it's based off something, but Michelle Yeoh, who was in Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, currently streaming on Disney Plus, is joining the series American Born Chinese, which is going to be an action comedy series about a teenager battling against Chinese gods. It kind of sounds a lot like Percy Jackson, but it's going to be like Chinese entities instead of kind of Greek mythological figures. So it could be really fun, could be interesting. It's also interesting that Disney is also doing a Percy Jackson series, so that it's be curious to see what the reaction to both series is, considering they seem very similar to each other.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. It's actually based on a graphic novel called American Born Chinese by Jean Luen that's pretty acclaimed and uh, was listed on a lot of like the top lists of the year and stuff like that. It's a modern graphic novel from like 2007 or something recent, so it's a pretty popular, like acclaimed recent graphic novel. So it's cool to see them get an adaptation of this, and yeah, I think it'll be fun. I think based on I haven't read the graphic novel, but now that it's getting a show, I got to make it a priority to read it. But yeah, it'll be good to see it, and I think it's cool to see these smaller works that are acclaimed actually get adapted more. In it's not just like Marvel show and Disney show and then Star Wars show. Like
Yep.
it's cool. Maybe this can be a nice big hit for them, and I would love to see it, especially because it has minority representation, which is always good and always a positive, and the book itself deals with themes about racial segregation and things like that. So I think it could be a nice show for Disney to engage with because it can be more mature while also having like cool action and comedy and everything else. So it could be a good fit for Disney Plus.
Yeah, the one thing I'm most excited about is the Asian child actor who played Short Round in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, and he was also in the Goonies, is going to be in this series. So I'm looking forward to seeing him as an adult actor.
Yeah, I didn't know that, but that'll be really fun. I
Yep.
can't believe it. See Short Round all grown up.
Yep. All right, and that brings us to one of our final topics. We have a few left, and that is the Cheaper by the Dozen trailer. Movie direct to Disney Plus streaming comes out March 18th. It stars Zach Braff and Gabrielle Union as two parents who have 10 kids from previous relationships and together. This trailer, like, if this movie doesn't win the Oscar for Best Picture next year, I'll be astounded. This movie looks incredible. I kid, this may be. This looks worse than Home Sweet Home. I don't know what the hell that was over there. It sounded like something died. You alright over there?
Yeah, like, my stomach is upsetting me tonight. Something I don't know what I
Okay.
am. Loud one there.
Your stomach had a strong reaction to this trailer.
Yeah, I can't blame it.
Tristan, you watched this trailer for the first time just before we went live. What did you think? Are you hyped for this movie? Is this your most anticipated movie of 2022?
Look, as you can guess by my bodily reactions, I was not super into this trailer. Where's Kevin Smith arguing for this Best Picture? Where's Jimmy Kimmel not ranting about this one not winning? And this is one of those trailers where I start laughing against the comedy. Like it's so not funny that I start laughing at it. And there's a moment where Zach Braff does the splits and like hurts himself, and I laugh so hard that like not even because it was funny, but it feels like something that they got out of like a 2005 script and they just found it now and they're like, oh, let's do this, and it feels very outdated and very much like for no one. And the movie that I just mentioned before, you take an unknown IP and you adapt it into something cool and interesting, and now you take a somewhat kind of known IP and you make it into the most boring thing you possibly can make it into, and it's like this is a pure cash grab. You're just taking the name Cheaper by the Dozen and making like the most simplistic possible comedy you can, and just selling it out to, fill your user seats on the platform. It's kind of depressing to watch, but yeah, not exactly invested. Cheaper by the Dozen as a franchise, but it's kind of weird that you're making this with when of all the things, of all the things, this is the thing.
Yeah, the one thing I'm surprised, like, they could have done with this franchise, or not this franchise, but like making it a mixed race family of like some of the kids are black, some are white, and then some of the younger kids from after the marriage or after the relationship are mixed. I feel like you could have almost done something with that and like had a family that has had to deal with like race. It didn't have to be like strong, like violent racism, but just stuff that like kids would see and deal with, and kind of teaching kids about that, and at least do something with it. But it just appears they've done absolutely nothing with it at all. Like I just don't understand what made them go back to the well for this. Like what person at Disney was like, we need to do Cheaper by the Dozen. Why? I don't know. We just should.
Yeah, it seems like Disney is reading down the list of all the names they own. They're like, a cheaper by the dozen. We could like make that one into something, and
Yep.
this is the type of stuff that I don't like about this platform, where it just seems like they're filling up empty slots with like empty versions of IP that no one really cares that much about, because they're gonna get just enough clicks to make it worth their money to keep it going.
Yep. All right. I don't even want to talk about this anymore. Um, let's jump back to the realm of Star Wars. Ray Stevens, who people may know from Punisher Warzone and the Star Wars series Rome, is joining the cast of Ahsoka. He was also in Clone Wars and Rebels. I believe he was the voice of Fen Rao, maybe. Not 100% sure on that. I know he was the voice of one of the Mandalorian characters in Clone Wars and Rebels, but that character dies long before the timeline of the Ahsoka series, and they're saying he's going to be playing a former Imperial. Um, it's always good to add talent. I think he could be really fun in a series like this. Any thoughts on Ray Stevens joining Ahsoka?
No, I mean he's a good actor, and I like that he has like a Star Wars legacy. I wonder if they're gonna play into it. Like, will he be playing a similar, like a character connected to his previous character in any way? Like, is it gonna be a reference in some way? And like I said, adding talent is always cool, and this Ahsoka show is taking more and more shape as we go along. So I'm looking forward to seeing who he plays, and it'll be a nice kind of like backward reunion of him with Star Wars and with Ahsoka and the Clone Wars characters. So that's kind of cool too.
Yeah, it'll be like another iteration of Clancy Brown, who played Savage Opress in Clone Wars. He played the former governor of Lothal um, in Rebels, and then he played that one kind of alien bounty hunter type character in in Mandalorian. So yeah, I'm interested to see Ray Stevens in Ahsoka. And then that brings us to we have two more topics. The other one, we're gonna stick in Star Wars real quick. This isn't really anything announced. It's just heavily rumored that there is a live action series starting filming in June of this year, and doesn't really line up with any of the announced shows. And there's a rumor that there's going to be a live action Star Wars series that's been inspired a little bit by Stranger Things, set during the High Republic. And if you don't know what the High Republic is, it's kind of the time before the Phantom Menace, like 500 to 200 years before the Phantom Menace. So that would be the earliest live action content we've ever seen at that point. Because The Acolyte, I believe, is only going to be 50 years before the Phantom Menace. So yeah, I'm very curious to see a different timeline in Star Wars. But any thoughts on this if this turns out to be true?
Yeah, I hope that is at least somewhat true, because I do want to get way beyond this timeline of Star Wars. And yeah, getting to it that far in the past is a good opportunity for them to really give new visuals, new planets, new locations, so it doesn't feel so trite and so repetitive. And I I definitely think one of the bigger problems with Book of Boba Fett was that I was getting tired of Tatooine. We'd seen a lot of Tatooine, and it wasn't the most interesting planet to look at. And I watched it, and I was thinking, oh, I can't wait for like High Republic, because that's going to be it's going to look so different. It'll look at least more like the prequel era, not so much like the worn down, torn down original trilogy era. So yeah, it'll be fun changing aesthetic at least. And
I really hope the series focuses on how Tatooine became from a water planet to a sand planet, and that's just the main arc of the series.
that would be interesting.
Just to make you angry. That's the only reason I root for that.
Yeah.
You're like,
Well,
oh, finally we get away from Tatooine, and it's like, oh, here's a thing that no one really cares about, but it's about Tatooine.
yeah, they spend the entire time on Tatooine.
Yeah. All right, so we have one final topic, and then we had another big drop on Disney Plus this week, and that is Assembled, the making of Hawkeye. And basically, after seeing a number of these, I feel like if you've seen one of them, you've seen them all. The main cast is like, wow, Marvel's cool, man. They just connect all this stuff, and it's great, and I love being a part of it. Also, our stunt team does stuff. Shout out to the stunt team. End of show.
Look, you can say that it's repetitive, but I like the repetitive ride. I think it's fun to look inside these shows, and I love the stunt. I love the stunt coordination scenes, and it's always cool to see the details of that stuff and the stuff that also often gets overlooked in Marvel stuff, where I can kind of shrug it off the action scenes of like, oh, it's just another Marvel action scene, but these are reminders of how much work goes into it, and I did get a couple of tidbits out of it. The one thing that I noticed towards the beginning is that they mentioned how they talked about this while filming Endgame, and they were like giving these ideas back and forth of what Hawkeye's story could be, and they were originally thinking of it as being a movie, and the story got a bit too above them, so they decided to make a Disney Plus show. But I think it's interesting that it started off in concept as being a Hawkeye movie, so I do think that was an interesting little thing that it wasn't originally a show,
Yeah.
but the idea was developed into a movie, especially when they looked at a Matt Fraction run and said, okay, this is such a good inspiration from the comics. And I like that they were able to kind of expand it into a show and make it work.
Yeah, I just don't think people would care about a Hawkeye movie. I just don't like Black Widow. People have are more Black Widow fans, but even that movie didn't like crush at the box office, and I just feel like a Hawkeye movie would just be meh. And I feel like the problems with a Hawkeye movie would be the same problems that a Black Widow movie is. Like it's a $220 million movie that should have been an $80 million movie, and yeah, that's kind of my thoughts. Another big takeaway I got out of it was the writers or directors or whatever of the show had approached Kevin Feige and are like, hey, is there any way we could add a tag at the end of Black Widow of Yelena? Like doing something to set up Yelena being in the Hawkeye series. Like it kind of lets you know that maybe these things aren't as planned out as we think. That it wasn't like Kevin Feige's like came to them and it's like we need Yelena in your show. It was more the other way around of like, hey, we would like Yelena in our show. Could we do something to set that up of her coming into our show?
Yeah, I do like that too because it makes us yeah, like you said, it's not as planned as we think it is. It's kind of this living, breathing thing that has a structure, but they're also able to kind of like weave things in and out and move things around, and that's something that's pretty impressive about it.
Yeah.
I also liked getting a look at the Rogers the musical and the all the work that went into making that and all the choreography, and I love myself a musical, and I wish all that work went into a more exciting musical number.
Mm-hmm.
Like I watched that and I think, wow, all those dancers and all of that, and it was just kind of like this okay musical number in the end of it. But yeah, that was also fun, and I would love to have gotten like a whole Rogers the musical on Disney Plus. I'm still advocating for it, Joe. I need the complete Snyder cut of the Rogers musical. Give me the 4 hour version.
Please, let's not, because I don't want to watch it. I don't want to have to watch it. And if they put it on there, I'm going to have to watch it for this show. I may cancel this show if they release it, just so I'm like, we're no longer doing the Disney Plus weekly review, so I don't have to watch that anymore. Thank you.
So when do you think we see Hawkeye again? Do you think Jeremy Renner is back as Hawkeye in another season of the show, or do you think he's back in another movie? What's the future for the character, you think?
We're definitely gonna see him again. I think they would have, if they knew he was done, they would have gave him more of like a definitive ending, whether it was killing him or him like fully announcing his retirement and passing the honor of Hawkeye on to Kate Bishop. I assume at some point in one of the other Disney Plus shows, I think he shows up to help out. I know in the comics, the Young Avengers kind of founded themselves, and that's part of part of their backstory. But I think him being the Nick Fury of the Young Avengers would be kind of cool, and would be fitting for his character, where he can kind of be a part timer.
Yeah, I think he could even be like you don't have to be the founder of the new Avengers, but he could be like the one they go to after they founded themselves, and they're like, okay, we need someone to kind of give us a bit of structure here,
Yeah.
so they could still maintain the fact that they
Yeah.
founded themselves, and then still use Jeremy Renner as like their secret guide, who maybe even isn't telling the Avengers about it. He's secretly working with the Young Avengers
Yeah.
because he likes them too much or whatever.
And
He thinks they're just good
yep.
kids.
Maybe the first episode, like maybe there's a Young Avengers. Maybe I don't want to say maybe there's like a precursor to the Young Avengers show. Like there's kind of like whether it's Ironheart or one of these other shows where they kind of all meet each other and team up, and then kind of the finale of that show is almost like the okay, now the Young Avengers are a thing. But maybe they need a place to hide out and like you go into hiding or something. And Kate Bishop's like, oh, I know somewhere, and then she takes them to Hawkeye's farm, and that's so now they've met. They've all kind of founded this group. And then, early in their meeting is when they meet Hawkeye, and he kind of gives them direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really like that. I love that we're building up a Young Avengers, and Haley Steinfeld. They mentioned how she was a perfect casting. I think she's a great addition to the Marvel universe, and she really fits so well into this. And I loved all the improv they had. I love the B-roll. I'd love to get bring back the blooper reel. Bring when you get the credits, it's gonna be like the outtakes. All the little improvs that Haley and Jeremy Renner tried to make that didn't really fit into the cut or whatever. Those are the kind of fun things you see in this. So you see a lot of those little moments between the two of them that make it really fun, and I can't wait to see more of her. So I enjoyed this behind the scenes thing.
Me too. It was fun. Anything else you want to say about Disney Plus this week?
No, we want to mention the fact that we may be getting some new Marvel editions before who knows when, but the Marvel shows from Netflix will be making their
Yes.
untimely exit March 1st at midnight, I believe, is the exit of all of the Marvel shows on Netflix. So it includes Daredevil, it includes Jessica Jones, it includes Iron Fist, Luke Cage, Defenders, Punisher. That whole collection, that whole mini universe that they created on Netflix is going to be no more, snapped away. There are no plans announced yet for where they're going to go after this or what's going to be the future of the shows, but they won't be on Netflix. You don't got to go home, but you can't stay here, Joe. So where are they going?
My guess, I think they fit better on Hulu. I think also Disney's gonna wait a bit before they make an announcement. I don't think it's March 1st at midnight they go off Netflix, and at March 1st midnight at midnight and 1 minute, like 12:01. I don't think they appear on Hulu. I think Disney's gonna want to wait, build anticipation, make it more of an event. I don't think they'll wait like a year or anything, but I could see like May 1st or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
them announcing or maybe they don't own No Way Home, so they don't care about that, but unless they do get money from Blu-ray sales or something, announcing coinciding with the No Way Home Blu-ray release, hey, Daredevil's gonna be on Hulu if you want to watch Daredevil for any particular reason.
I know No Way Home will at some point be on Disney Plus, so maybe they'll coincide it with that.
Yeah.
Or with Doctor Strange. Who knows? Who knows how long they're going to hold on to these for? Like, Doctor Strange is not that long from now,
Yeah.
when you think about it. From March 1st to May, 6th?
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. Doing it May 1st, give people time to, check it out a little bit, and then...
Especially if Doctor Strange has some kind of Netflix universe type scene where it's like, oh, we're going to bring the Defenders back for one final thing, or we're going to bring Charlie Cox in for a scene or something like that. It could be a nice way to tie it all together and have everyone talking about it and watching it all on Disney Plus.
The only thing that makes me think it could go to Disney Plus is Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin is already on Hawkeye, so I could see them basically being like, okay, we can connect it. But I think they're just going to do the multiverse thing of like Kingpin can exist in two universes. Like Vincent D'Onofrio played Kingpin in the Marvel Netflix series, and he plays him in this, and it's two different universes, but maybe they have similar stories. Same with Charlie Cox Daredevil. Like Charlie Cox, the Daredevil in the main MCU, maybe just never joined the Defenders. But if you kind of watched just the Daredevil seasons, basically the MCU Daredevil had a pretty much identical story, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see where they end up, if they're on Hulu or if they're on Disney Plus, if they just get lost to the ether forever, Who knows?
I can't see them just going away forever and never being anywhere, because I think Disney knows that the cost of essentially making those shows, right, wouldn't basically the cost to make shows that would drive as much traffic to Disney Plus is way more than just buying those shows from Netflix to get them. Like, to get, because I feel like they could play Netflix like $25 million, being like, okay, you, because of contracts, you literally aren't allowed to show them anymore, so you're not gonna make money from these. If we pay you $25 million, because you're hemorrhaging money and losing money all the time anyway, so here's a free $25 million for us to buy those shows from you, and now we just get to broadcast them wherever we want, you know? Maybe Disney's like, screw it, we're gonna air them on Freeform, you know?
Yeah, who knows where it'll be at? Are they gonna all be on ABC syndication?
Yeah.
They
I feel
could
like it's
end
a
up
little too
anywhere.
violent for that. I don't know what all networks ABC own or Disney/ABC owns. I just always revert to Freeform because it's like the most adult of the ones I remember outside of like ESPN, but they're not playing Daredevil on ESPN.
ESPN presents Jessica Jones.
Yeah. All right. I think that's our show for the week. Unless Tristan, you have anything?
No, I think that's all we've got for you guys. We got a bit of an off season coming up, content wise, but we'll still be here show wise every week for you guys.
Yeah, I think Tristan and I are talking about, since it's a little bit before Moon Knight drops, that we may be reviewing and talking about the show Snowdrop, which just released on Disney Plus. It's a Korean romance soap opera, so we may get one episode in and realize we are not watching this because all of the episodes are like an hour and a half, and there's 16 of them. So this is either going to be something where I think we're going to come back and tell you this show is amazing, and we're going to review every episode, or this show is mediocre. We watched the first one.
Yeah, I'm also looking forward to watching Summer of Soul. It's on Disney Plus, so I'm gonna give that one a watch through and give you my thoughts next week on that one. So it'll be a fun one to watch, and especially ahead of the Oscars, I want to get through everything that's nominated, and it's cool to have one of them on Disney Plus.
Yep. All right, that wraps up our show for the day. Without further ado, goodbye. Appreciate if you liked, commented, subscribed, and shared us with anyone you think might be into what we're doing over here. Thank you. Have a nice day.